Hello and welcome to another episode of Behind the Story. I am your host, Eli Sherman, joined this week, per usual, by my co-host, Kim Kalunian of 12 News. Kim, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm very excited about our episode today
Me
because we're going to be talking about East Providence, which is a place that we spend a lot of time in.
Every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Sometimes Saturday
Sometimes
and
on the
Sunday,
weekend.
we're here too because this is where our studio is.
Yeah. And of course, to do this right, we are bringing in a very talented journalist this week who covers East Providence very closely, Ethan Hartley, editor of the East Providence Post. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Kim?
Well, I am super excited, Ethan, because you and I have known each other for quite a while, and I'm a big fan. And I just wanted to sort of start with why you feel local news is so important, because you've been covering local news now for a super long time. And I think for us, for Eli and I, we now work at a statewide outlet, and we get to sort of skim the surface. But when you are working at a local newspaper covering one city or town, you really get to know all the players, all the stuff that's happening behind the scene. So why has this been, sort of your chosen path?
Yeah, it's funny, and thank you for that question off the top, because I think about this pretty much every week that I'm doing the job and getting through my deadlines. It started off as an accident. I went to school in Suffolk University in Boston and didn't exactly know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I knew that I was okay at writing. I had a teacher that was really complimentary of me when I was in high school. And so I kind of just dove headfirst into what I thought was a marketable skill in college, and that wound me up at an internship with the Boston Bruins for sports writing, and then writing on my school paper, and then ultimately getting a job in print journalism. And where I'm from is the North Shore of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So kicked around a couple of weeklies there for a little while, and wound up in Rhode Island in 2017 at the Warwick Beacon, which is where I met your mom, one of my favorite people in the world. And
Shout out to Karen.
To make a very long story short, it's been 10 years since that first job in Danvers, Massachusetts, and it's gone by in the blink of an eye. My hair used to be all brown.
So did mine.
Oh, come on. And to answer your question, I think, especially recently, it is so easy for people to get bogged down and discouraged by huge news stories that they can't control or do anything to change, and sort of feel like you're swept up in this current of things happening all around you and you have no power. And I love covering a local community because it really is something that is manageable and more human, and you can really grasp the issues that are around you. And while you might not be able to, change what's happening on a national level, you can go to your local city council meeting, you can talk to your school committee representative, you can vote for a bond that makes your school buildings better. And covering those issues really gives me a sense of I'm doing something important, even if it's small. And I've often found, especially doing the fun stories with talking to, an Eagle Scout that just did his Eagle Scout project, and the dad contacts you after you write a feature story about it, and he says, my son hasn't stopped talking about this, and we have the article up on the fridge, and it's going to be a memory for that kid for the rest of his life. And I always try to appreciate those moments and think about, even if it's a small difference, it might mean a lot to the people that I interact with. And so that's why I love local news.
Yeah.
That was really nicely put, Ethan. And I think often we all feel that about sticking around and doing local stuff.
Yes.
And talking about fun stories, one that drew a lot of attention to East Providence recently was, of course, the giant troll that was put up there. Can you talk a little bit about what that has meant for the town, how it rolled out, and sort of, we're going to cover a lot of different things in East Providence, but I thought that this was a fun one to start out with.
Mrs. Skipper has been one of the most positive stories of the year, I think, and people from all around the state have already come down to see her. Obviously the little bit of backstory is that it's this international art installation from a Danish artist named Thomas Dambo, and we in news, our job a lot of the time is to criticize local government and how it doesn't work or isn't working properly. But I love the troll story because it really shows how a little bit of foresight and some good executive decisions can lead to something that's really positive for a community. So in this case, the troll story actually starts all the way back in 2021 when Richard Bakari, the second of Churchill and Banks, he's a developer, he was developing Kettle Point, that beautiful development up there on the hill that has the orthopedic center. It overlooks exactly where the troll is. And Mayor Bob De Silva at the time got an agreement with Mr. Bakari to donate 3 acres of land next to the water there, where that pier is, in kind back to the city. So that land belonged to the city, and they needed to, it was just sitting there. It used to be a place where they stored giant oil tanks. And that's what a lot of East Providence, I've been told, was back in the day. It was just where they dumped their oil, and it was a blighted waterfront basically everywhere all around East Providence. And so the opportunity came along when Thomas Dambo was interested in doing more trolls in Rhode Island, and the mayor connected with him. They own the land, so it was sort of easy to get their hands around, and it took them, I think, 2 weeks to go from Thomas Dambo said yes, let's do it there, to using their own in-house engineers to design the framing they needed to get it done, and then the volunteers put it together, and then the troll was there.
In 2 weeks?
And I think Mayor De Silva said that was the fastest he's ever seen anything get done in government, basically.
That is not an understatement.
Done, right?
Right.
Amazing collaborative effort from everyone involved, honestly. It's just a good, positive story.
That's
really
great.
Is. Well, I want to switch gears to something a little bit more nitty-gritty. City budgets, which we like to talk about.
Eli loves talking about budgets.
They're important.
They're really important.
They're important.
They are where the rubber meets the road.
Absolutely.
It's true.
In municipal government. And it's timely because as you mentioned, the mayor, before we went on camera, the mayor just signed the most recent budget in East Providence. What are the top line figures that folks should be aware about?
Yeah, a whiplash warning for going over these kind of quick, but I have the top line numbers. $205 million budget, which represents about a $10 to $11 million increase in expenditures from last year, driven mostly by fixed costs. So $2.3 million additional local contribution to the school department, which is close to the 4% max. That's what the schools asked for and the city granted. $1.55 million increase just to contractual obligations for salaries for city employees. $1 million in additional school bond payments. So for the $189 million high school that they built, the $149 million Martin Middle School and Waddington Elementary improvements, and then $500,000 extra in healthcare costs. Those are just some of the bullet points of sort of the fixed costs.
Well, talk about taxes, because that's, oftentimes people are thinking about that as a taxpayer in East Providence.
So ultimately what happens is they have these extra costs, and they're going to need to wind up raising the tax levy, the maximum amount, 4% by law, to raise the necessary revenue. And
just so people are aware, the tax levy is the amount allowable under state law. Each municipality can grow its tax base basically year to year, which essentially means that people from East Providence should expect their taxes to go up as much as possible under state law.
It's true, and the mayor is hoping that some additional economic development in the city is going to lessen the burden. So as of right now, the tax rate increase is actually more than 4% in terms of what your taxes will go up. It's around 4.6, I think. But he's hoping that an additional $1 million in revenue from $50 million of economic growth will lower that burden a little bit. So maybe the tax increase will be closer to under 4, maybe it'll be at 4, maybe it'll be less, maybe it'll be higher. But as of right now, the tax rate increase is around 4.6%.
And I mean, it seemed like, the council passed this budget. There was overall, an appetite for this. I mean, what is the council saying? How are they justifying it? What are people saying?
Yeah, only one councilman vetoed the budget or didn't vote an approval for it. There was 2 budget workshops where I think one member of the public came to actually speak about it. Councilmen had positive things to say about it, mostly because they're not cutting services. The schools are getting what they need. Police and fire are getting what they need. They're putting money aside for things, for road paving. So it's a very trim and fit budget. It's very lean, but that kind of shows, and we can talk about this later. I know we're coming up against a break. That a budget in municipal budgets today are very tight. And just to get the basic services and take care of your contractual increases takes up a lot of what you have room for. And so mostly they said, it's not a great budget, it's not perfect, but it's the best we can do, and they passed it.
And it should be noted that that's not just a problem in East Providence, but in every city and town in Rhode Island.
Every place I've been.
So we are going to have to take that quick break. But when we come back, we're going to talk about affordable housing. And of course, you can't talk about East Providence without talking about the Washington Bridge. Stick with us. Hello and welcome back to Behind the Story. I'm your host, Eli Sherman, joined by my co-host, Kim Kalunian. And this week we are talking to Ethan Hartley, editor of the East Providence Post. And Ethan, we talked a little bit about budget, a little bit about trolls, a little bit about journalism.
Literal trolls.
Literal trolls. But one thing, and Kim and I spend a lot of time in East Providence, and it seems like there's a lot of building going on for housing. And one story you did recently really focused on this issue. A lot of your reporting has focused on this issue, but you highlighted one recently, the Center City Apartments. Can you talk a little bit about that project and how it fits more broadly into the conversation of affordable housing in the city?
For sure. A topic that, by the way, generates a lot of non-literal trolls is affordable housing. If you ever browse online forums, very, very polarizing topic. But for this one, this is a project put forth by One Neighborhood Builders, which is a nonprofit builder out of Olneyville, doing a lot of great work in Providence. And this is their largest project to date. It's on Taunton Avenue, 144 units. It would have been more. It would have been, I think, 160, but they couldn't get a parking variance, which is another common issue with these kinds of developments. Now, what's really special to me about this project, or what I think is special about it, is that it's actually all really bona fide affordable housing. So 60% of the units are up to 80% of the area median income.
And we're showing you some video of this. I think it's a little dated. I think it's from about a year ago.
This is probably before they gutted it and did the, okay. So when I was just in there last week, they had it all completely skeletonized, basically, and they're in the process of rebuilding a center building. And then on either side, they're going to build 2 new buildings to create the 144 units. And then 60% of those are going to be for up to 80% of the AMI, meaning making 80% of the area median income. It's complex, but it basically means, someone making less than the average wage can live there.
It is the federal designation for affordable.
Precisely.
Right? Okay.
And then the other 40% are actually going to be for the people most at risk of becoming homeless, so up to 30% of the AMI, which is very, very low. And is the kind of housing that studies have consistently shown is sort of most in need, is this at-risk housing for people. And then I think more importantly in this development, on the ground floor of the middle building, they're going to have 3 different social service agencies housed in the building. Foster Forward, apologize, I had it written down.
The idea here, though, Ethan, is so that there's sort of wraparound services actually at the place that people are
Foster
living,
Forward,
right?
Crossroads, and Family Service of Rhode Island. I just remembered.
Yep.
Exactly. Wraparound services for people that are at risk, that need these services, that they're going to be connected to them within the place that they live. And this is part of East Providence. You mentioned having a lot of building going up. There is a lot of building going up, and a lot of it is aimed towards affordable. And they're trying a lot of different things with affordable housing in East Providence, which is unique. So you have like this big nonprofit type of development. You have SWAP Incorporated, which is a smaller nonprofit builder. They built 3 townhouses over in a different part of the city where there's 1 live-in unit and 1 rental unit, and so the homeowners can actually rent out their apartment to help subsidize their own housing. And those fit in with neighborhoods. They're not like these big giant buildings. That's kind of a different model. And then the city council actually just approved a zoning amendment for it to be easier to build the detached accessory dwelling unit on your property, similar to what Providence did, where they removed the requirement for the square footage, and Barrington did a similar thing too. East Providence is you need to have at least 5,000 square feet to build a detached ADU. But all of these strategies kind of coming together to try to address the serious affordable housing problem that exists throughout the state.
Is East Providence attracting people, or are people going elsewhere? Because I know, you and I both have covered Warwick, and, the schools were shrinking. They needed to downsize. People are moving out of the city. I know there's like this debate now whether it's Warwick or Cranston that's bigger, and the census says it's Cranston and it used to be Warwick. So where does East Providence fall among all of this? Are people coming to the city, or are they going elsewhere?
Yeah, it's hard to quantify for me because I haven't done specific reporting on population size in East Providence, but I would say just anecdotally through hearing, people are not moving in droves. The enrollment in schools, I believe, is declining significantly. Like I believe it is pretty much everywhere else. So at least families and new families are not moving into the city. And based on the affordable housing situation, not a lot of new people are moving in just because it's so unaffordable. The average, the median house price has gone up so much. I believe it was $250,000 in the state in 2020, and now it's around $500,000 last time I saw a report in Projo. So it's really hard. And I interviewed a young couple in East Providence. They live with they're a 28-year-old couple, and the wife, she is living with her parents that live in Riverside in their home that they bought when they immigrated from the Azores.
Wow.
And so they're together and they're living with her parent. They want to move out. They both have jobs. They're both making decent money, but it's just not doable under the current situation.
Which, again, is not just an East Providence problem, but lots of places.
Yeah. We have to switch gears a little bit here because it's impossible to talk to the East Providence reporter or editor without talking about the Washington Bridge. Such a big issue. The bridge, of course, connects East Providence to Providence and back. And, you know, I think you had a really interesting series of stories recently about businesses and the economic impact that's happening because, you know, when the bridge closed in 2023, December of 2023, there was this feeling that it was going to be such a detriment to every business around there because the traffic became so bad. But you actually did what a local journalist does and went to local businesses, pounded pavement. What did you find?
So funny enough, I interviewed recently. I did 8 feature stories on the businesses from East Providence that wound up in Rhode Island Monthly. They do that annual round best. And you know, the bridge, like it barely came up. I probably could have prodded more about it if I wanted to, but they were focused on what they were doing. It seemed like they were pretty much business as usual. The more poignant story from the bridge episode that I thought was it didn't get a lot of coverage was the study that came out from Salve Regina in January of this year. And it showed that there was a giant decrease in revenue from meals and beverage taxes in the state as a whole, extrapolating out to around $750 million with a B by 2029. But Bristol County saw an increase in meal tax and beverage tax revenue, and East Providence saw an increase in meal and beverage tax revenue in that year between when the bridge closed and last year. And that to me said that the East Bay and East Providence has a loyal group of residents that really wanted to support their local businesses. And then East Providence also did a great job partnering with the state to give out over $700,000 worth of bridge grants last year, which were awarded right before Christmas. It was a great story. And that made whole about 40 businesses that were affected. And there's another $500,000 in grants that are available as of June 25. I don't know what the status of those is and how they've been allocated yet, but suffice to say, the state and the city of East Providence have very much tried to address that impact that the bridge had on them, and I feel like local residents really picked up the slack and, you know, continued to patronize them through the hardships.
Yeah. Do you think that the bridge is still as much of a headache for people who live around that area? Is the traffic decreasing? I mean, what are you hearing from folks who are writing into the paper and who are like, oh, we're going to be dealing with this for several more years?
Yeah, as somebody who lives in Cranston and whose beat is in East Providence and whose office is in Bristol, I live it, you know, every day, and I think that Rhode Islanders are very adaptable people, and I think we kind of assume that things are going to be bad. And so I think at this point, almost 2 years in, we just know what to expect and that the bridge is going to be miserable and traffic's going to take an extra half hour to get where you want to go. And no one really knows what's going to happen or how it's going to get there or who to blame or, you know, what the end result's going to be. But I feel like we've actually honestly just kind of adapted at this point.
Okay, well, we have to now take another quick break. That new bridge will be open. It's scheduled to open at the end of 2028. So people can count down to that. But make sure that you follow Ethan for not only great journalism, but everything that's going on in East Providence. Ethan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, when we come back, the stories we wish we wrote. Stick with us. Hello and welcome back to Behind the Story. I'm your host, Eli Sherman, joined by my co-host, Kim Kalunian. We're entering into the final segment of our show, The Stories We Wish We Wrote, where we look at other great journalism happening around the region and banter about it. Kim, I really like your first pick this week. Take it away.
So this is from the Boston Globe by Beth Titel, I think is how you say her name. And she did a very hard-hitting investigation here.
I love it.
The title, the headline is, Which Duncan is the Most Duncan of All? An investigation. And she doesn't even have to, I mean, we all know what that means. What's the most Duncan? And she goes through and asks a bunch of people what they think and, you know, what makes a Duncan have that certain something. Is it the double drive-through? Is it the group of people that gathers there every day for their coffee and donut? But she reaches this conclusion that she quotes someone on this. And I think this person is very wise because they said the most Duncan is your Duncan.
Oh,
it's like the friends we made along the way.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. I mean, I hope that when that story was pitched, that there was absolutely no pushback from whoever the editors were, because
of course not.
That is something that will resonate with anybody anywhere in New England and beyond. So
Correct. It was a great read, really fun read.
My first pick this week is Hospital Makeovers, Health Systems Look for Shot in the Arm from Multi-Million-Dollar Projects. This is by Katie Castellani, of the Providence Business News. And it was a really interesting story because I believe it was their cover story this past week. And it examined all these different hospitals who are doing just multi-million-dollar improvements to their facilities. And it really struck my eye because I was thinking in my head, wow, hospitals are really struggling in a lot of ways now. Do they have the capital to sort of pump in all this money for new stuff? And so it was really interesting argument between, hospitals who say we need this, in fact, to move forward, and people who are a little wary about it being like, is this the right time to be investing in this way? So she did a really good job sort of threading that needle.
It sort of reminds me of the school system, Eli, because we know how, cash-strapped so many school departments are and how much, money they need to help these students, and yet they're building these new high schools and new facilities, and so it sort of reminds me of that. It's like there needs to be a good physical space for the important work to be happening inside.
Yeah, that's a great analogy, actually. And your other pick this week is keeping in the area of healthcare.
Yes. So this is by Alexander Castro with the Rhode Island Current. Rhode Island considers ending Medicaid coverage of GLP-1 drugs for weight loss. Now, we've heard a lot about these shots like Wegovy, and they're very expensive.
Is it Ozempic? Is that also one of them?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Wegovy and Ozempic, and I think there might be a couple of others that are considered these GLP-1s. Of course, they're used to treat diabetes, but they're also used for weight loss now, and they're super, super expensive, like $12,000 to $16,000 a year. And the thing that struck me in this story is this paragraph. Between the start of fiscal year 2024 and the end of fiscal year 2025, GLP-1 costs roughly quadrupled in Rhode Island's Medicaid's per member monthly payments to its managed care plans, according to the department. Quadrupled.
That is
in
insane.
1 year.
Yeah, the popularity of these drugs are just insane, and it's showing in the numbers. Talk about budgets.
Always.
We have to go. I had another one about a tour bus in southeastern Massachusetts that they compared to the big blue bug. Something that people should keep an eye out for. So people should check that out. But that's all the time that we have this week. People can go check out this episode and any other on our website and also on YouTube. It's also available as a podcast, so people can go check that out wherever they get their podcasts. But for this week, for Kim Kalunian, I'm Eli Sherman. Thank you very much for watching Behind the Story.